Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Ruttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Om Agnanatimirandasya Gnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Mena Tasme Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatharini Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gauravakturunda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. End of 4 chapter 4 verse 15. Yatpada Padmam Mahatam Manolibhir Nishevitam Brahma रसास्वार्थिभिः लोकस्य यद्वर्षति चाशिषोऽर्थिनस् तस्मै भवान् दुह्यति विश्वबन्धवे. You are envious of Lord Shiva, who is the friend of all living entities within the three worlds. For the common man, he fulfills all desires, and because of their engagement in thinking of his lotus feet, he also blesses higher personalities who are seeking after Brahmananda. So, Lord Shiva, the friend of all living entities. So two categories of living entities. One is the common man, the other is higher personalities. Common man, he fulfills all desires, so he's called Ashutosha. And higher personalities, because of their engagement in thinking of his lotus feet, uh, he also blesses them. And these higher personalities are those who are seeking Brahmananda, Gyanis, basically. Ordinarily, there are two classes of men. One class who are grossly materialistic, one material prosperity, and their desires are fulfilled if they worship Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva, being very quickly satisfied, satisfies the material desires of the common man very quickly. Therefore, it is seen that ordinary men are very much apt to worship him. Next, those who are disgusted or frustrated with the materialistic way of life worship Lord Shiva to attain salvation, which entails freedom from material identification. So, this is a karmi and this is a jnani. One who understands that he is not the material body but his spirit soul is liberated from ignorance. Lord Shiva also offers that facility. So, he gives material desire, fulfills material desires. He also gives salvation. Mm. He gives salvation as in mm, he can bless them to attain salvation. Salvation. One who understands that he is not the material body but is liberated from ignorance. Lord Shiva also offers that facility to become liberated from ignorance. People generally practice religion for economic development to get some money. Mm. Or by getting money, they can satisfy their senses. But when they're frustrated, they want spiritual Brahmananda or merging into the Supreme. These four principles of material life, dharma, artha, kama, moksha, exist, and Lord Shiva is the friend of both the ordinary man and the man who is elevated in spiritual knowledge. Thus, it was not good for Daksha to create enmity towards him. Even Vaishnavas, who are above both the ordinary and the elevated men in this world, also worship Lord Shiva as the greatest Vaishnava. Yeah, Prabhupada is saying they also worship, but this is not generally recommended because then everybody starts worshipping, and then Krishna's worship will be sidelined and demigod worship will happen. So our acharyas don't recommend. But those who are really elevated, uh, they can worship Lord Shiva as the greatest Vaishnava and worship. Of course, Prabhupada elsewhere says worship means only to Lord Krishna, but we can pray. We can pray to Lord Shiva for blessings, for mercy, so that we can also advance and become uh, good Vaishnava. Thus, he is the friend of everyone, common man, elevated men, devotees of the Lord. So, no one should disrespect or create enmity towards Lord Shiva. Mm. So, this is a very nice summarization of Shiva's position. That is why he is Shiva, Mangala, auspicious to everybody. He is auspicious to everybody, whether they are common men, they're elevated spiritualists, or they're devotees of the Lord. He's um, he's a well-wisher. He's a friend of everyone. किं वा शिवाख्यम् अशिवं न विदुस्त्वदन्ये ब्रह्मादयस्तम् अवकीर्य जटाः मशाणे तन्माल्यभस्म नृकपालवसत् पिशाचैर् ये मूर्धभिर्दधति चरणावसृष्टम्. Do you think that greater, more respectable personalities than you, such as Lord Brahma, do not know this inauspicious person who goes under the name of Lord Shiva? So she is being sarcastic here, saying that more respectable personalities than you, such as Lord Brahma, don't they know that he is inauspicious, Shiva? Because you are calling him inauspicious. The greater personalities, they don't know that he is inauspicious. That means that they know that he is auspicious. He associates with the demon. Why inauspicious? Because you think he associates with demons in crematorium. His locks of hair are scattered all over his body. He's garlanded with human skulls, smeared with ashes from the crematorium. But in spite of all these inauspicious qualities, great personalities like Brahma honor him by accepting the flowers offered to his lotus feet and placing them with great respect on their heads. It is useless to condemn a great personality like Lord Shiva, and this is being stated by his wife Sati, to establish the supremacy of her husband. First, she said, you call Lord Shiva inauspicious because he associates with demons in crematoriums, covers his body with ashes of the dead, garlands himself with skulls of human beings. You've shown so many defects, but you do not know that his position is always transcendental. Although he appears inauspicious, why do personalities like Brahma respect the dust of his lotus feet and place on their heads with great respect those very garlands which are condemned by you? Since Sati was a chaste woman and the wife of Lord Shiva, it was her duty to establish the elevated position of Lord Shiva, not only by sentiment but by facts. So this is the expected behavior of a Vaishnava, mm, that he establishes the elevated position of Supreme Lord, his great devotees, not by sentiment but by facts. So we see that devotees don't necessarily seriously engage in understanding philosophy. So what happens is when there are difficult situations in life, they become sentimental. So very, very important that we base our bhakti not on sentiment, but on knowledge, but on facts. Sometimes we have to face difficult situations. We might lose a loved one. But then we cannot not trust Krishna or lose faith in Krishna. That can happen only if we are on the sentimental platform. But if you are on the philosophical platform, then we will understand everything as per Guru Sadhu Shastra. So sentiment is of no use, especially in Prabhupada's movement. There's no scope for sentiment. Based on tattva, uh, then eventually we will come to the stage of rasa. Where there is bhava, there is rasa. But that sentiment is not baseless sentiment. This sentiment Prabhupada is referring to is baseless sentiment, meaning general sentiment. People worship without understanding, like they worship ordinary human beings as God. Sentiment. It's just sentiment. Lord Shiva is not an ordinary living entity. This is the conclusion of Vedic scriptures. He is neither on the level of the Supreme Person of Godhead nor on the level of the ordinary living entities. And Brahma is in almost all cases an ordinary living entity. Sometimes when there is no ordinary living entity available, the post of Brahma is occupied by an expansion of Lord Vishnu. But generally this post is occupied by a greatly pious living entity within this universe. Thus Lord Shiva's position is constitutionally higher than that of Lord Brahma, although Lord Shiva appeared as the son of Brahma. Here it is mentioned that even personalities like Brahma accept the so-called inauspicious flowers and the dust of the lotus feet of Lord Shiva. Great sages like Marichi, Atri, Bhrigu, and the others among the 9 great sages who are descendants of Brahma also respect Lord Shiva in such a way because they all know that Lord Shiva is not an ordinary living entity. Of course, Bhrigu in this situation, he wanted to protect the demigods. So in one sense, he went against Lord Shiva. In many Puranas, it is sometimes asserted that a demigod is elevated to such high position that is almost on an equal level with Supreme Person of Godhead. But the conclusion that Lord Vishnu is the Supreme Person of Godhead is confirmed in every scripture. So sometimes other personalities like Brahma, Narada, they might also be called Bhagavan. But that just to show that they are very apt representatives of the Supreme Lord and nothing else. Lord Shiva is described in the Brahma Samhita to be like curd or yogurt. Curd is not different from milk. Since milk is transformed into curd, in one sense, curd is also milk. Similarly, Lord Shiva in one sense is in one sense the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but in another sense is not, just as curd is milk, although we have to distinguish between the two. These descriptions are in the Vedic literature. Whenever we find that a demigod occupies a position apparently more elevated than that of a Supreme Personality of Godhead, it is just to draw the devotee's attention to that particular demigod. So Shastra will say some like Surya or Chandra, they might be glorified as very great. That's just to draw their devotees' attention to them. That's all. It is also stated in the Bhagavad Gita that if one wants to worship a particular demigod, the Supreme Person of Godhead who is sitting in everyone's heart, Yanti Deva Vratha Devan, gives one greater and greater attachment for the demigod so that one may be elevated to the demigod's abode. Yanti Deva Vratha Devan, by worshipping demigods, one can elevate himself to the abodes of the demigods. Similarly, by worshipping the Supreme Person of Godhead, one can be elevated to the spiritual kingdom. This is stated in different places in Vedic literature. Here, Lord Shiva is praised by Sati partially due to her personal respect for Lord Shiva, since he is her husband, and partially due to his exalted position, which exceeds that of ordinary living entities, even Lord Brahma. The position of Lord Shiva is accepted by Lord Brahma, so Daksha, Sati's father, should also recognize him. That was the point of Sati's statement. She did not actually come to her father's house to participate in the function, although before coming she pleaded with her husband that she wanted to see her sisters and her mother. That was a plea only, for actually at heart she maintained the idea that she would convince her father Daksha that it was useless to continue being envious of Lord Shiva. That was her main purpose. So Prabhupada is revealing it this. That was the main purpose, that she was not, though her words seem like she wanted to actually go and see her sisters and mother, but actually her main purpose was to convince Daksha about the position of Shiva. When she was unable to convince her father, she gave up the body he had given her, as will be seen in the following verses. कर्णोऽपि धाय निरयाद् यद कल्पयिषे धर्मावितर्यश्रृणिभिर्नृभिरस्यमाने चिन्द्यात् प्रसह्य रुषतीम् असतीं प्रभुश्चेज् जिह्वाम् असून् अपि ततो विसृजेत् सधर्मः. That he continued, if one hears an irresponsible person blaspheme the master and control of religion, one should block his ears and go away if unable to punish him. But if one is able to kill, then one should by force cut out the blasphemer's tongue and kill the offender. And after that, one should give up his own life. Because killing is not acceptable. But one who kills for this reason, he'll kill and he should also kill his own life. Those who cannot kill, they should just block their ears and go away. The argument offered by Sati is that a person who vilifies a great personality is the lowest of all creatures. But by the same argument, Daksha could also defend himself by saying that since he was a Prajapati, the master of many living creatures, and one of the great officers of the great universal affairs, his position was so exalted that Sati should accept his good qualities instead of vilifying him. The answer to that argument is that Sati was not vilifying but defending. If possible, she should have cut out Daksha's tongue because he blasphemed Lord Shiva. In other words, since Lord Shiva is the protector of religion, a person who vilifies him should be killed at once, and after killing such a person, one should give up one's life. That is the process, but because Daksha happened to be the father of Sati, she decided not to kill him, but to give up her own life in order to compensate for the great sin he had committed by hearing blasphemy of Lord Shiva. The instruction set forth here in Srimad Bhagavatam is that one should not tolerate at any cost the activities of a person who vilifies or blasphemes an authority. If one is a Brahmana, he should give up his body, because by doing so, he would be responsible for killing a Brahmana. Mm. If one is a Brahmana, he should not give up his body. Okay. If one is a Brahmana, he should not give up his body because by doing so, he would be responsible for killing a Brahmana. Therefore, a Brahmana should leave the place or block his ears so that he will not hear the blasphemy. If one happens to be a Kshatriya, then he has the power to punish any man. Therefore, a Kshatriya should at once cut out the tongue of the vilifier and kill him. But as far as the Vaishyas and Shudras are concerned, they should immediately give up their bodies. So this is the injunction. Sati decided to give up her body because she thought herself to be among the Shudras and Vaishyas, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 9.32. Striyo Vaishyas tata Shudrah. Women, laborers, and the mercantile class are on the same level. Thus, since it is recommended that Vaishyas and Shudras should immediately give up their bodies upon hearing blasphemy of an exalted person like Lord Shiva, she decided to give up her life. So yeah, so one thing that comes out here is clearly all the rules in the Vedic uh, system were all based on Varna. Everything. So there's no generic rule. One has to know whether he's a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, and then accordingly, the rules are there to be followed. So Sati was following, just considering that she was lower than Brahmana, Kshatriya. So she considered herself in the class of Vaishyas and Shudras, and she decided to give up her body. अतस्तत्वो अतस्तवोत्पन्नम् इदं कलेवरं न धारयिष्येषिति कण्ठगर्हिणः जग्धस्य मोहाद्धि विशुद्धिम् अन्धसो जुगुप्सितस्योद्धरणां धरणं प्रचक्षते. Therefore, I shall no longer bear this unworthy body which has been received from you, who have blasphemed Lord Shiva. If someone has taken food which is poisonous, the best treatment is to vomit. Since Sati was the representation of the external potency of the Lord, it was in her power to vanquish many universes, including many Dakshas. But in order to save her husband from the charge that he employed his wife Sati to kill Daksha, because he could not do so due to his inferior position, he decided to give up her body. So some people might just put this charge saying that Shiva, because Shiva employed Sati to kill Daksha, so she decided to give up her body. So she's thinking, though she has the power to do it, she's very much thinking, in terms of Lord Shiva's position. And then she decided to give up her body. न वेदवादान् अनुवर्तते मतिः स्व एव लोके रमतो महामुनेः यथा गतिर्देवमनुष्ययोः पृथक् स्व एव धर्मेण परं क्षिपेत् स्थितः. It is better to execute one's own occupation and duty than to criticize others. Others apostrophe means others' duty. Elevated transcendentalists may sometimes forego the rules and regulations of the Vedas, since they do not need to follow them, just as the demigods travel in space, whereas ordinary men travel on the surface of the earth. So sometimes elevated transcendentalists may not follow rules and regulations. We don't criticize them, we just do our own duty. The behavior of the most elevated transcendentalist and that of the most fallen conditioned soul appears to be the same. The elevated transcendentalist can surpass all the regulations of the Vedas, just as the demigods traveling in space surpass all the jungles and rocks on the surface of the globe. Although common man who has no such ability to travel in space has to face all those impediments. Although the most dear Lord Shiva appears not to observe all the rules and regulations of the Vedas, he is not affected by such disobedience. But a common man who wants to imitate Lord Shiva is mistaken. Common man must observe all the rules and regulations of the Vedas, which a person who is in the transcendental position does not need to observe. So we should never anukaran, we should never imitate higher personalities. Daksha found fault with Lord Shiva for not observing all the strict rules and regulations of the Vedas. But Sati asserted that he had no need to observe such rules because he was elevated. It is said that for one who is powerful like the sun or the fire, there is no consideration of purity or impurity. The sunshine can sterilize an impure place. Whereas if someone else were to pass such a place, he would be affected. Actually, same logic Shukadev Goswami gives to Parikshit Maharaj when the 10th canto Parikshit Maharaj repeatedly asked Why Krishna is okay? Krishna came to establish dharma. Why is he doing dharma? Actually, then Shukadeva Goswami becomes angry. He says, I've already explained it to you. People who are like, supremely powerful, we should not see them in terms of purity and impurity because they can purify every place they come in touch with. One should not try to imitate Lord Shiva. Rather, one should strictly follow one's prescribed occupational duties. One should never vilify a great personality like Lord Shiva. So this we already discussed yesterday. Mm. So we should not do Vaishnava Parad. So we should recognize elevated transcendentalists. Mm. How do we recognize elevated transcendentalists? By just the mercy they have received in terms of being able to spread the Krishna consciousness movement. Mm. Unless one has got the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he cannot spread the Krishna consciousness movement. So anybody who is dedicated his life to do that is an elevated person. He might do things that we might not be ordinarily able to understand, but we should not blaspheme because um, uh, sometimes these great personalities can forego rules and regulations. It's like in Chaitanya Leela, many times, Nityananda Prabhu and Advaita Acharya have very, kind of funny exchanges which almost look like fighting. And then Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, if and this is just their Leela, and if someone takes one side of one of these great personalities, then he's doomed. And because they're fighting, we might say, oh, no, no, I like Nityananda Prabhu. Why Advaita Acharya is doing like this? Somebody might like, I like Advaita Acharya. Why Nityananda Prabhu is like this? No, we're not supposed to take those. It is their internal. It's their Leela. Similarly, even in today's, our society, maybe there might be difference of opinion at the level of, great Vaishnavas, senior devotees, Maharaj, etc. We should not get involved in that. It's their Leela. Let them figure out, as in it's left to them. We should just understand that all of them are elevated, all of them are just way above our position to even comment. And yeah, if sometimes if something looks like um, not in line with with Guru Sadhu Shastra, then we have to understand that there might be some other reason, but we should not copy, we should not imitate. This is the mistake actually most devotees do in ISKCON. You see some exalted personalities do something and then we also end up doing that. No, we should not do that. We should know that, okay, this is not as per Prabhupada, then maybe he's not said that this can be done. But if a exalted devotee is doing that, that means that he or she has a reason for that. And we leave it between for them and Krishna. We don't blaspheme, but we don't copy, we don't imitate. We still stick to following rules and regulations because we are at a very beginning stage in bhakti, right? In a neophyte stage. Karma pravrittam cha nivrittam apiritam vede vivichyo bhaya lingamashritam viroditad yoga padaikakartari dvayam tatha brahmani karmanarchati. In the Vedas, there are directions for two kinds of activities, pravritti and nivritti. Activities for those who are attached to material enjoyment, pravritti, and activities for those who are materially attached, nivritti. In consideration of these two kinds of activities, there are two kinds of people who have different symptoms. If one wants to see two kinds of activities in one person, that is contradictory. But both kinds of activities may be neglected by a person who is transcendently situated. The Vedic activities are so designed that the conditioned soul who has come to enjoy the material world may do so under direction so that at the end he becomes detached from the material enjoyment and is eligible to enter into the transcendental position. So initially, because everybody has come to enjoy this material world, so there is scope for pravritti. But this pravritti is also as per Shastra, as per Veda, Karma Kanda. Basically, follow the injunctions of Veda to become happy, to enjoy this material world. But eventually, this person has to come to the stage of nivritti, has to become detached. If we want to continue to remain in, trying to enjoy this material world, then we are at a very beginning stage of this journey. Especially once we come into bhakti, bhakti is so powerful. Cheto darpana marjanam has to happen. And when darpana marjana happens, when the mirror of the heart is cleansed, Obviously, this desire for sense enjoyment has to go. That is the first thing that has to go. Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janeti Ashu Vairagyam Jnanam Chayada Hetukam. Vairagya is Yukta Vairagya, but we don't get attached to any material thing. We should not remain. So that is the next level. One has to make progress in bhakti. Initially, there will be attachment, but then as we do sadhana bhakti nicely, detachment has to become visible. Uh, Vairagya and Gnana, both of them have to manifest. And only then, that is Brahmabhuta stage, then one is eligible to enter the transcendental position, Brahmabhuta, Prasannatma. The four different social orders, Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyasa, gradually train a person to come to the platform of transcendental life. Actually, this one, I just 2 more minutes on this propensity to enjoy. I've told this before. Uh, if you have a propensity to enjoy by, say, buying clothes, buying ornaments, etc., we should just do it for Krishna. Meaning, not that we buy clothes and say, I'm buying this for Krishna. No, we buy clothes for Krishna. We buy ornaments for Krishna. So that propensity, actually, what we actually want is we like going to the shop and buy. That's what we actually like more than, wearing it ourselves or whatever. So instead of buying it for ourselves, we buy it for Krishna. Mm. So somebody wants to eat, yeah, we make sure that nice, very variety of items are cooked and offered to Krishna and we eat. So this way, gradually, slowly, gradually, we'll get purified of that propensity. Like I told before, I had a propensity to spend money, so I started spending money for Krishna. I started spending money to buy books. I spent a lot of money. So what happened then? That money, I stopped spending that money outside materially. So that was the first step. When I started spending all of it in the realm of Krishna consciousness. Then what happened? Then automatically the desire to spend elsewhere completely went off. Mm, mm. Yeah, I mean, there are changes are there, but it will go off because bhakti is so powerful. So those propensities can be dovetailed in Krishna consciousness, for which we have to be under the guidance of devotees who are uh, advanced. Then we seek their guidance, and then we can make progress. The bhakti process is very, very powerful. We don't have to break our heads over what to do. What needs to be done is very clear. Just that our willingness or lack of willingness to do it is the big question, and for which, if you are in the association of devotees who can give us guidance and from whom we are ready to take guidance, right? For which one has to be inspired by the devotees from whom they want to take guidance. If they're not inspired, if they think, no, 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 this is too much, then yeah, then we will remain where we are without being able to make meaningful progress. So, four social orders gradually train a person to come to the platform of transcendental life. So eventually, everybody has to come to this stage of detachment and then transcendental life. The activities and dress of a grihastha or a householder are different from those of sannyasi. It is impossible for one person to adopt both orders. Sannyasi cannot act like a householder, nor can a householder act like a sannyasi. But these two kinds of persons, one who engages in material activities and one who has renounced material activities, there is the person who is transcendental to both. Lord Shiva is in the transcendental position because as stated before, he is always absorbed in the thought of Lord Vasudeva within himself. Therefore, neither the activities of the Grihastha nor those of the sannyasi can be applicable for him, Shiva. He is in the Paramahamsa stage, the highest perfection stage of life. Transcendental portion of Lord Shiva is also explained in Bhagavad Gita 2.5253. It is stated there that when one fully engages in transcendental service of the Lord by performing activities without fruitive results, one is elevated to the transcendental portion. At that time, one has no obligation to follow the Vedic injunctions or the different rules and regulations of the Vedas. Only when one has reached this transcendental portion, we should not assume simply saying I've reached the transcendental portion, or we should not be neglectful. Say, no, no, I'm not in the transcendental portion. Still, Krishna consciousness means very natural, spontaneous attraction to Krishna. So I'll do whatever I want. This is all speculation, mental speculation. That's all. when one is above the directions of the Vedic ritualistic injunctions for attaining different allurements, this karma kanda, and is fully absorbed in transcendental thought. When one is above karma kanda and fully absorbed in transcendental thought, which means the thought of Supreme Person embodied in devotional service, one is in the position called buddhi yoga or samadhi ecstasy. For a person who has attained this stage, neither the Vedic activities for realizing material enjoyment, nor those of renunciation are applicable, because he doesn't function on this platform at all. He doesn't function on the platform of enjoyment and renunciation. He is way above that. So he doesn't have to follow. But for others, we have to follow. Like I said, most devotees get confused looking at actions of senior Vaishnavas, exalted Vaishnavas, and thinking that they also can imitate them. So we have to be very, very careful. We should never imitate these exalted Vaishnavas. When we are trying to imitate, we should just remember, like Shiva drinking the hala hala poison. Mm. So we cannot imitate. So we have to know that they are exalted, they can do whatever. We have to follow in their footsteps, meaning that we have to follow their instructions, and we should know our actual position. We should not be in illusion about our position. Okay, I think I'll stop here. Any questions, comments? No questions, no comments. Okay, thank you very much for joining. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Vancha Kalpatarupishta Kripa Sindhu Devata. पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। कोटि वैष्णव की जय, सवैत गौर भक्त की जय। हरे कृष्ण।